Hello, this is Julie McCulloch, and we're here in Port Townsend at the first Saturday Gallery Walk. We're so fortunate to have a traveling exhibition of traditional Tibetan Thangka art. The exhibition is sponsored by the Tibetan Children's Educational Foundation. And we have with us here the director of the foundation, Tensum.
I'm a Tibetan, and I was only 2 years old when the Chinese occupation took place. His Holiness the Dalai Lama fled into India, and he was followed by about 100,000 other Tibetans. My family was one of them. I was only 2 years old, so I don't remember much about that incident. But I grew up as a refugee in India, had all my schooling there. Even had the good fortune to graduate from Punjab University and later earned a Fulbright scholarship at Harvard University. And so that was my initial sort of connection here to the West. After that, I did go back to India to continue my work with Tibetan children's education, and later had the immense good fortune to connect with some people in Montana who had deep empathy for Tibetan children, and they were working with a foundation called the Tibetan Children's Education Foundation. And so my godmother and sponsor, India Supra, is the founder of this foundation, and that is how I came to be connected with this wonderful foundation.
We're interested to know a little bit more about the work that you're doing with the foundation, especially here in the United States from your headquarters in Helena. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Julie, the Tibetan Children's Education Foundation is dedicated to working for the education of Tibetan refugee children in exile. We try to do whatever we can. We have a wonderful sponsorship program where we connect interested sponsors here with the needy children back in India. We have helped to build schools, start computer education program. Basically, we try to do whatever we can to support their education. And then the foundation also tries to preserve Tibetan culture that, as you know, is now in danger of extinction. And as a non-profit based in the United States, one way that we feel we can do this effectively is by raising awareness of Tibetan art, of Tibetan culture here in the West. And that is why, I'm traveling with these beautiful Tibetan Thangkas all over the country talking about Tibet, Tibetan culture and Tibetan art. And so I'm very happy to be here in Port Townsend tonight.
Thank you, Karma. As we know, there are many types of traditional Tibetan arts, and one of them is Thangkas, others are carpets, and others are sand paintings. But today, since you have these beautiful Thangkas, we're interested to know more about the Thangka. Can you tell us what is a Thangka?
A Thangka is a religious painting. On the Thangka is depicted either the Buddha or other deities associated with the Buddhist cosmology. A Thangka is, for a Tibetan, a Thangka is more than just a painting. The Thangkas are very beautiful, very colorful, but for a Tibetan, it is more like a guide to meditation. All Tibetan homes, whether it is simple ones or very rich ones, will have Thangkas of varying sizes. So the Thangka is part of most Tibetan altars. It's a place where Tibetans worship, and you'll find Thangkas in almost every Tibetan home.
Can you tell us a little bit about a specific Thangka?
Well, tonight we have a whole collection of Thangkas all around us, Julie. This particular Thangka is of Avalokiteshvara. In Tibetan, the name is Chenresik. This is the Buddha of compassion. In the Tibetan cosmology, we have different kinds of Buddha, different manifestations, I should say, and this particular one is the manifestation of Chenresik. For most Tibetans, this is a very special Thangka because His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we consider him to be an incarnation of this Buddha of compassion. On this Thangka, you will see that the central deity is depicted with 1,000 arms. These 1,000 arms portray the omniscient arms of the Chenresik. On each of these arms, you can also see the all-seeing eyes. It's just a representation to say that the Buddha of compassion has these all-seeing eyes, he has these all-working hands, he is full of compassion for all sentient beings on earth. The Thangka painting itself is enclosed on all sides by decorative brocades, and we also have a yellow fold here. This is actually a functional value only. This is a cover for the Thangka. Thangkas are scrolls that were in Tibet meant to be rolled up. In Tibet, many Tibetans were nomads, traveling from place to place with their yak and sheep. They needed their Thangkas to travel with them. That is why these Thangkas were meant to be rolled up, and this protective cover will just come down to protect the painting when it is traveling. This Thangka depicts the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, who got enlightened in the 6th century BC. And for me as a Tibetan, I can recognize this particular Buddha very easily, because there's a definite way that each manifestation of a Buddha is presented. In this particular case with Shakyamuni, one of the ways I can recognize him is that his right arm is touching the ground or Mother Earth. There is a story that the Buddha, when he reached enlightenment, invoked the Mother Earth as a witness to this supreme moment. Another thing about Thangka art is you see all these brilliant colors on a Thangka. It's fascinating to know that all these colors are from mineral rocks. Artists will grind lapis lazuli or some other mineral to get the colors that they want. You can see that gold is also fairly extensively used in this Thangka art. I've got some samples of the minerals which a Thangka artist uses: cinnabar, lapis, and then they also use a lot of very fine paint brushes. Thangka art is very detailed. It can be extremely detailed, and so a Thangka artist uses sometimes has to use brushes that are very, very thin. Thangka art is more to do with precision, accurateness, rather than on being creative. Tibetan Thangka painters create these Thangkas using very strict iconographic rules that are passed on from one generation to the other. A master Thangka artist tries to get all the features of a Buddha perfectly. So he's aiming for perfection in his representation of these deities rather than in creating new images.